So a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from a church in Fresno, California. And the email said, "We're sorry, but we're not going to consider you for the position." And I read that and I said, I haven't applied for any position in Fresno, California or any other place. And so I sent an email back and I said, there must be a mistake. I haven't applied for any position. And they send an email back which says, "Thank you for your inquiry, but I'm sorry, we're not going to consider you for the position of executive pastor at our church." And so I sent another email back and I said, "No, you do not understand. Apparently, someone is posing as me and is using my name and address and email address in order to apply for a position at your church. Can you tell me more?" And the email stopped. So I called the church, got the receptionist, and I said, "This is a strange thing that's going on, but apparently someone has applied in my name using my contact information for a position at your church." And the receptionist was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that that's happening." I said, "Yeah, could I talk to Pastor so-and-so? Just a moment." A couple of minutes later, she comes back and she says, "Thank you so much for calling. I'm sorry we're not going to be able to consider you for the position. You have a good day." Chink. Isn't that strange? I need you to go on a stream of consciousness stroll with me. An imposter is someone who acts like, pretends as if they are someone else. Okay? There's a step down from that when someone does an impression of someone else. So an impressionist is somebody, you look at them and you know they're not the person. Okay, now a step down. We've gone from imposter to impersonator, impressionist, imitator. You imitate someone who has made such an impact on your life that in their life you see beauty, you see truth, you see some amazing quality or habit, and you incorporate that into your life and you imitate it. And that happens in this passage of Scripture in a very surprising way to me. As you heard, it's 6 days before the Passover. Wow, amazing religious drama in the air. Jews from all over the Mediterranean are descending upon Jerusalem to celebrate this, the highest of high holy days, the Passover. To add to that, the scripture that we heard today says that Jesus is there with Lazarus, with Mary, with Martha, as the festival of the Passover gets ready to kick off, and that Jesus is there with Lazarus, whom, in a previous chapter, Jesus has resurrected from the dead. Kaboom, kaboom! Double doses of religious drama going on there in this gathering. And Jesus shows up for supper. And Martha prepares a feast, and Lazarus sits beside Jesus completely alive. Mary enters the room, and in her hands, she has 1 pound, a year's wages worth of an expensive perfume. And while Jesus is reclined at the table, as they would do in that time and culture, she pours upon his feet this expensive perfume. And she undoes her hair and she wipes his feet with her hair. Judas says, witnessing this, couldn't we have sold that and given the money to the poor? Here's the thing, though. Even though he's doing all of this stuff behind the scenes, and even though John, the writer, wants us to not dig what Judas is saying, he's right. They could have sold that for $20,000, $30,000 and given the money to the poor. That doesn't sound like Jesus, does it? So what's going on here? If you do a little research into cultural traditions of that day, you'll discover that the Jewish folk tended to differentiate between acts of kindness and acts of charity. There was a big difference. An act of kindness could be selling this perfume, providing all kinds of stuff for poor folk. An act of charity in those days, and it's a higher act than just an act of kindness, an act of charity would be to assist someone who is dying, who is going to die, so that their death and their burial is honored. So in that culture, what Mary does is indeed a very significant and important and charitable act. She is preparing Jesus for his death that's going to happen. Mary has experienced the love and spiritual power of Jesus in such a way that she pours out her own extravagant love on his feet. If you would look in Luke chapter 10, you will see kind of a revolutionary thing that happens. Again, Jesus is at the home of Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. And Mary is busy preparing a meal because that's the role of women in those days. And Mary is found not in the kitchen, but she is found in the place where disciples are. She is sitting at the feet of the rabbi who is teaching. This upsets folks. And there's gossip in the house, and there's complaining, and Jesus calls everybody down and says, wait a minute, Martha, you especially. You're busy with all kinds of stuff, but I need you to hear that Mary is in the right place. She's in her place. She's in the better place. And in that moment, wow, a whole new world opens up. And you find, especially in Luke's gospel, women acting as if they are disciples and apostles. And Mary is someone who has found such spiritual power and freedom in Jesus that here on this day she cannot contain her gratitude. She has been so deeply loved and enriched that she pours out her gratitude at the feet of Jesus. Jesus is moved by what she does for him. Judas speaks up and says, can't we sell that and give the money to the poor? And Jesus says, please leave her alone. He quotes the book of Deuteronomy, which says, you always have the poor with you, so always be generous. He says, you're not always going to have me with you, so leave her alone. She's preparing me for the day of my death. And we'll hear it said in the scripture that Jesus will say, wherever the gospel is preached, this woman and what she has done will be talked about. Here's what moves me in the scripture. Jesus, in just a few days, will imitate Mary. He is not materially rich. He does not have expensive perfume. All he has is a bowl of water and a towel. And he has his ability to give himself. And so, just a few days, 4 days from Mary doing this, Jesus will pick up a bowl of water and a towel, and he will come to each disciple on his knees, and he will wash their feet, and he will pour out his love upon them. I find it very moving that Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, would imitate Mary.